When I first met Tyler, he was 7 years old and impossibly quiet. He was sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, flipping slowly through a picture book he'd already memorized, his small fingers tracing over the images like he was trying to make sense of a world that no longer made sense. He didn't look up when I entered. He didn't smile. And he certainly didn't speak. That day, I understood something without needing it said out loud. Tyler had been through more than most children his age, and he had built walls to keep the rest of the world out. I was 31 when I met Chris, Tyler's father. I wasn't looking for love. After a painful breakup and years of focusing on my career as a school counselor, I'd learned to keep my heart guarded. I had grown comfortable with being on my own, but life has a strange way of pulling us into stories we didn't expect to be a part of. Chris and I met through mutual friends at a backyard barbecue. He was quiet, respectful, and carried a sadness behind his eyes that made me curious. We didn't talk much that day, but when he messaged me a week later asking if I wanted to grab coffee, I said yes. Our connection wasn't instant fireworks. It was more like a warm flame that grew stronger each time we talked.
Chris was open about his past.
He told me his wife, Emily, had passed away after a long battle with illness. Tyler had just turned 6 when it happened. Chris spoke about her with reverence and grief, and I respected that deeply. He made it clear that his heart still carried her memory, but he was ready to rebuild his life, for himself and for his son. We took things slow. We didn't meet each other's families for months. It was 6 months before Chris even mentioned the idea of introducing me to Tyler, and I was relieved he wasn't rushing. The day finally came on a sunny Sunday afternoon. I brought along a small set of colored pencils and a sketch pad. Chris had told me Tyler liked to draw. I didn't want to come empty-handed, and I wasn't trying to win him over. I just wanted to offer something gentle, something that didn't demand anything in return. Tyler took the gift with a small nod. "Thanks," he murmured, barely above a whisper. Then he turned and walked back to the couch. I spent the next hour sitting nearby, chatting with Chris, while Tyler stayed absorbed in his own world. It wasn't a bad first meeting. It just wasn't really a meeting at all. But I understood. He didn't know me, and I hadn't earned his trust. Over the next several months, I made a conscious effort to be around without being overwhelming. I started joining Chris and Tyler for movie nights. I'd sit at the edge of the couch while Tyler curled up next to his dad. I'd bring books and ask if he wanted me to read out loud. Sometimes he said no. Sometimes he nodded. Slowly, very slowly, we began to share little moments, shared smiles over silly movie scenes, quiet nods when I complimented his drawings, the occasional high five when he did well on a school assignment. It was a slow dance of patience, and I reminded myself constantly that I wasn't trying to replace anyone. Tyler had a mother. Emily would always be a part of his life, whether or not she was physically present. I wasn't trying to erase her. I just wanted to stand beside him if he ever needed someone. One evening, about a year into my relationship with Chris, I came over and noticed a piece of paper on the fridge held up by a magnet. It was a child's drawing, 3 people standing together, hand in hand. I recognized myself immediately. The curly hair, the pink sweater I often wore. Tyler had drawn us, and he'd placed me in the middle. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to embarrass him, but something in my chest shifted. Maybe, just maybe, I was beginning to earn a place in his heart. Chris and I got engaged the following spring. It was a quiet proposal, just the 2 of us on a hiking trail we loved, surrounded by trees and the sound of birdsong. I said yes, of course. But that night, as we sat on the porch drinking tea, I turned to him and said, "We need to talk to Tyler before we tell anyone else. This can't just happen to him. He needs to be part of it." Chris agreed. The next day, we sat down with Tyler after dinner. Chris explained everything gently, that we loved each other and wanted to become a family. Tyler looked at us both, expression unreadable. "Okay," he said after a long pause. "Are we still gonna live here?" Chris smiled. "Yes, buddy. Nothing's changing right away. We just want you to know." Tyler nodded. Then he looked at me, eyes searching mine. "Will you still read to me sometimes?" My throat tightened. "Of course I will. Anytime you want." He smiled just a little. And in that moment, I knew we were going to be okay. The wedding was small, just close friends and family. Tyler walked me down the aisle alongside Chris. We didn't plan that. He just came up beside me before the ceremony and said, "I want to walk too." My heart nearly burst. A few months after the wedding, something happened that I will never forget. It was a school night. Tyler had been quiet all evening, more than usual. After dinner, he asked if we could talk alone. Chris gave us space, and Tyler led me to the porch. He was fidgeting, rubbing his hands together. "I've been thinking," he said, not looking at me, "about stuff. About family." I sat down beside him. "Okay, what kind of stuff?" He hesitated. "If I had a wish," he said slowly, "and I asked you something really big, would you say yes?" My heart skipped a beat. "That depends on what the wish is, sweetheart. But I'll listen. Always." Tyler looked up at me then, his brown eyes serious and soft. "I want you to be my mom. For real. Like, not just because you married Dad. I mean, I want to call you Mom. I don't want to pretend Emily isn't my mom. But I think she'd want me to have one now. If that's okay." I couldn't hold back the tears. I pulled him into my arms and held him close, feeling his little body shaking slightly. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, Tyler. That's the most beautiful wish I've ever heard. And I will be your mom if you want me to be. Always." He hugged me back hard. "Thank you," he said, voice muffled against my shoulder. I just didn't want to keep it in anymore.
We talked to Chris about it that night.
He cried too. We all did. And from that moment on, I became Mom. Not a replacement. An addition. A continuation of love. We didn't rush any legal steps. We let Tyler set the pace. When he asked if we could do a name change at school, we supported him. When he wanted to make a small speech at a school assembly about families coming in all shapes and sizes, we stood proudly in the audience. When he introduced me to his friends as my mom, I felt a pride that no words could capture. The journey wasn't without bumps. There were moments of confusion, days when Tyler missed his birth mom and didn't know how to express it. I always told him the truth, that it's okay to miss her and love her and still love me too. Love isn't limited. It expands. Now Tyler is 14. He's taller than me and has a dry sense of humor. He still draws, though now it's digital art and comic sketches. He still hugs me when no one's looking, and sometimes when everyone is. Every now and then he'll say, "Thanks for saying yes," just out of the blue. And every time, I say the same thing. Always, sweetheart. Always. Because when a child opens their heart and makes a wish, and you're given the honor of saying yes, you do. You show up. You listen. You love.